I'm reading now the NIV. Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. God bless the reading of his word.
All of us struggle. All are broken. Many of us feel we're part of humanity's mess, constantly moving and going nowhere. We find frustration in our relationships, our systems, and even ourselves. We're lonely, we're cynical, we're scared. They felt all this too, even more so.
2,000 years ago, their everyday existence was what we would consider the third world, covered in spiritual darkness, smothered in political violence and oppression. But heaven's light shines into this.
There in a cold, wet cave lay a God who put on flesh. A God who, for some strange reason, was choosing to dwell among people.
Into the heart of the familiar,
this baby holds the potential to restore humanity's belief in the extraordinary. Heaven's light shines into this. With his life, he will save. With his death, he will conquer.
And with his love, he will answer the question, what is God?
What is God really like?
So even though we sit 2,000 years beyond this event,
can we really sit beyond this event?
The one who was held by Mary is now holding us.
The one who cried in the middle of
the night
is now wiping the tears.
From our eyes.
This newborn is offering new birth wherever you are.
Whatever you're in the middle of.
However the story of your life has unfolded.
The news is good.
The news is very, very good.
Heaven's light shines into this.
Heaven's light shines into this. I want you to think about that statement. I came across that video yesterday, and it really hit home. Because so much and so many times in our life feels pretty dark. Feels like darkness sometimes is absolutely enshrouding us. And the fact of the matter is that it does. But heaven's light will shine into even that situation. And that's what we hold on today. And so today we are going to talk about the light of the world. Now, you know as well as I do that oftentimes during this year, it seems the closer we get to that day, more lights come out on houses. And it's funny because there are some people that they just do it in stages. One day you go by and they've got a few lights up on the gutter and maybe on the eaves. The next day you go by, they got stuff out in the yard. The next day you go by, it's on the bushes. The next day you go, and so on and so on and so on. And so, you know, I personally enjoy seeing lights. I like the color. We oftentimes have taken the kids and go driving. The kids really enjoy it too. They've even got some of the places here in Springfield, and until I moved here, it's the first time I ever experienced it, that they actually have a lights tour that you can, you know, get the printout and go around all these houses. And then when you get there, they have Christmas music on a radio station that you can tune into. So it's really kind of nice. But one of the things I want to talk about today is the fact about this light and the mere fact that the brightest if you want to call it Christmas light, the brightest light that has ever shone in this time of the year, had nothing to do with somebody's house. It had to do with a little bitty manger and a baby. And you know, the thing about it is, this light, nobody expected that little baby was going to do what that little baby did. Nobody expected that when they looked down to see that, what would really happen. Even the shepherds, even the wise men, they had all been told, but they really couldn't envision what this little child would do. They really couldn't envision the light of all the ages. You know, if you go back into the Old Testament in Isaiah chapter 9, and this is kind of where Isaiah makes the proclamation further down into the chapter, but I want you to see in verse 2, it says here, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. And as I began to go through all of this, and I began to think about the different verses that have to do with Jesus, not only the prophecy of his birth, but also things that he said about himself, it became very evident that God was specific, that he wanted people to know not only then, but even now, that light is there for a reason. And we're going to kind of examine that today. And we're going to kind of look at why light. Right? But if we continue to look on the Bible verses here, John 1, as John was giving an introduction, if you will, of Jesus, this is what he put in verses 1 through 5. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Who's he talking about here again? Jesus. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. Now let's check out this next couple of verses. In him was life, and the life was what? The light of men. And the light shines in darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend. Ladies and gentlemen, did most of the people at Christ's birth that were anywhere around that town know what was going on? No, they didn't. Should they have known? Yes, they should have. And unfortunately, even the people who did know that a Messiah was coming didn't realize that that was the Messiah that came. And so they were living in a darkness. And unfortunately, even though the darkness was kind of self-imposed, it was fueled by Satan, trying to keep their eyes closed. Because not only did they not understand that Jesus was this light, Jesus was the Messiah, but at the same time, they were also looking for a totally different kind of Messiah, a superhero Messiah that would come in, swoop them out of the Roman reign. But that was not what it was about. It was about light. We're going to continue to look here. This is what Jesus said in John 12:46. He says, I have come as what? Light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. Then he goes on, and we look at here is why it says light. Why is light? You know, I thought about it because it's important for us to understand. Now, I'm about to do something, and I really want you to think about what I'm about to do. So, what is up there on the slide? Well, there's something there in there. What? Well, screen's there, right? What'd you say? Darkness is on the screen. But now, as we look at this, one of the things that you're going to notice is when I bring in something that is light, color light, darkness, friends, doesn't exist. Do you understand that? How many here understand that darkness does not exist? All right. Darkness is simply the absence of light. And you're going, well, duh, I learned that in 5th grade. Okay, we did, but now let's apply it spiritually. So darkness, evil, Satan. If the darkness in this world is simply here because of the absence of light, which means in our life we're focusing on either the dark or the light, right? If we're focusing on the dark, then we can switch on the light by focusing on Jesus, His promises, the Bible, the Word, whatever you need. And guess what happens when you flip the light on? The darkness goes away. Friends, I could stop right here and have prayer and move on, because this is exactly what we need to understand in the world we live in today. Now, I think it was Karen who said that, this week has been a rough week. Hey, I second that, right? There's been a lot of folks that I've talked to that this has been a really rough week. Expect it. Expect it, right? Unfortunately, the world is powered and fueled by darkness. It is up to us, and it is up to others to make sure that we turn the light on. But we can't do it for somebody else. We can shine a light, right? Have you guys ever been out in the woods or anywhere at night with a flashlight, and that was your way of finding a way? Okay. Now, what happens if your flashlight goes out? You're in darkness, right? Now, do you feel really self-assured in darkness, that it's going to be okay, I'm going to find my path and all that? Now, there's some survival folks here that'll say, well, I look up and I see the star over here, and this and that, and I just go this way. And I'm like, okay, well, good for you. I'm not. I'm just going to sit down. But but the thing that I want to bring this to you is anytime we take light out of the equation, we become vulnerable, right? And any time that we allow ourselves to focus on dark, it gets darker. Does that make sense? It really doesn't get darker. It just feels that way. Now, let me throw something at you. How many times have you been in a situation where somebody turned out the lights in a room and they say, give it just a minute and your eyes will adjust? You heard that? Now, let's make a spiritual application out of that. That is bad news, right? Because if I just give it long enough in the darkness, my eyes will adjust and I'll be okay. That's simply saying, folks, that we'll get used to the darkness, we will accept the darkness, and we won't mind being in the dark. One of the things that was really interesting for me as I was a police chaplain in Nebraska was I did the weekend nights, right? And so I would go out with them, and sometimes we would be in a lighted area, and other times we wouldn't be in a lighted area. And I was so hoping that light I had on my hip was going to work, right? Well, the beautiful thing about the light in the spiritual side, it always works. It always works. Because that light is also love. And we just read where Jesus said that light and that love is also the life of man. Right? So, what does that mean, folks? I want to make a point here before we go on and look at some other things. In these weeks that are rough, in these weeks that are dark, flip the switch. Flip the switch. Now, I go over here a lot, and I'll turn this off so we can see our videos, right? What did I do before I got up and spoke? I turned the light on, didn't I? Right? And they even make a light switch that has a dimmer on it, and you can have a little bit of dark, a little bit of light, but friends, I'm driving this into the ground because you have to understand, if you are in darkness, if you are feeling oppressed, if you are feeling slighted, it is about turning the switch on and igniting the power of light in your life. Now, you can sit in the dark if you want to, that's fine. But folks, you control the switch. Now, I'm preaching to me as much as I'm sharing with you right now. We have to be ready to flip the light. Now, why? Well, let's talk about light for just a few minutes. Our eyes are immediately drawn to the light. Whether you enter a dark room and then you turn that light on, or it's a lamp that comes on in a room, or a candle, your eyes immediately are drawn to that, and it's the first thing you look at, right? Well, in spirituality, it's interesting. Even though if I turned every light off in here, blackened out the windows so you couldn't really see anything, it was really, really dark. The first person to turn their phone on, which is what you do nowadays, and you have a light on it, everybody would look right to there, right? But isn't it interesting? In our spiritual side, the light, too many times, is the last thing we look at. We need to ask God to get our hypersensitivity to the point where when we're down, frustrated and upset, maybe we're brokenhearted, times are tough, it is time to immediately focus on the light and not on the darkness. If we will do that, we will find that things will change. Look at the Bible, what it says in Luke chapter 2, verses 8 through 9. Now, we're here talking about the shepherds, and I want you to see the role of light here. Now they were out in the same country, shepherds living out in the field, keeping a watch over their flock. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. That's light, right? And what does it say? They were greatly afraid. Why do you think they were afraid of that? Why do you think? Well, what? Yeah, they'd never seen anything like that before, right? And it had to be so bright. It's amazing when we think about how we are attracted to the light and how these gentlemen were just so awestruck. It did one other thing. It made them open to receive the message, right? They weren't distracted. They were focused on the light, and then a message came that would change their life forever. I wonder, friends, how many times in our own personal life have we missed focusing on the light and missed life-changing opportunities? Now, don't get me wrong, there's always a plan B and a C because our God loves us, right? And He's always willing to do whatever He can to take care of His children. It's just we're dense sometimes, and we don't listen. We don't look to the light. We look around us. In the Bible, it's very clear that light will guide us. Matter of fact, let's look at John chapter 12, verse 35. Jesus is speaking here, and He says, "A little while longer, the light is with you." What does it say? "Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going." How many times you bumped your toe in the middle of the night on something when you got up out of bed? Now, I've often heard that the only reason the good Lord gave us pinky toes is to make bumpers so when we hit things in the middle of the night. But the reason we do that is because we don't know where things are. And now, this is for you. How many times has the wife rearranged the furniture on you and you didn't really pay a lot of attention and then you got up in the middle of the night, tripped over something, and fell down? Yeah, we do that. And it's a biblical thought process here is perfect because it's basically Jesus saying, listen, you need to walk in the light, me, while I am with you, to His disciples, while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. So there again, Jesus is telling us, if we will walk in the light, focus on the light, because we generally look in the direction we're walking, then we don't have to worry about the darkness overtaking us. What is your dimmer switch set on right now in your spirituality in your life? Is it half lit? Is it half dark? Is it broke? It's important that we know these things. Now next, in verses John 8 and 12, Jesus simply puts it out there and says, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." Friends, do you think Jesus is trying to make a point? There's more than what I've got here. There's a lot more than what I've got here. But I think He is trying to make a point for us to understand that we have to make a choice. Now, unfortunately, we should make a lifelong choice, but sometimes we make a choice for a minute, right? I don't know where you're at in your spiritual walk. It's really not for me to know. It's between you and your Lord. But the beautiful thing about it is, There is so much light out there for you and I that in reality, if we will choose to flip the switch when Satan throws that old cover over us and tries to darken things, we can be strong in Jesus. But we have to make the choice, right? We have to make the choice. So why else did God use light? Well, first of all, talks about, that light attracts and light guides, but also light exposes. Give you a good illustration. I hope none of you have ever had to go through this, but I have at times seen this. It wasn't my own personal situation, but I've seen it. I used to run a credit operation for a furniture company. And when you do that, a lot of times you have to go repossess the product because people can't pay for it or whatever. And I've been to places, and one sticks out very well, and I'm not going to name the town or anything else, but we went to this home. The guy said we could go take the stuff. He had moved out, left everything behind. And so we went in there, power was off. They had cut the power. So we'll go in, we had our flashlights, ready to roll, do everything. Went in, got the chair out of the front room. We got the little love seat that was there. And then we had to get a dining room table and chairs as well. And so we went into the kitchen, and I did this with the light, just around the room, see what was in there. And I'm telling you, folks, the walls were covered with bugs. And when the light hit them, you would have thought I electrocuted them. Up into the corners, behind the cabinets, down behind the granite, everywhere. They didn't want to be seen, right? Because light exposes. Now, that's a good thing for Christians, right? That's a good thing because as we walk with Jesus and we have that hand-to-hand, body-to-body, mind-to-mind relationship with Jesus, He shines a light into our dark spots in our life. Don't be ashamed of it. Instead, say, Lord, thank you for showing me my next growth opportunity, right? And sometimes we get frustrated with growth opportunities. I'm telling you right now, I'm going through a real frustrating growth opportunity right now in my life. But I realize it's a growth opportunity, right? He is shining light on yet another thing that I need to do. Think of it this way. If we were to lay a stone pathway right from the front of the church to the back of the church and then out the door, but it was totally dark in here, and the only thing you could see was the stone that was right next for your next step. You couldn't see the rest of it. You couldn't tell where it led, but there was a light on the stone that is right in front of you. What would you do? Step there, right? Uh-oh. There's no more light. I can't see. What do I do? I almost said here, right? No. What'd you say? Well, the stones are supposedly there. Wait. Wait. One of the hardest things for humanity to do is wait. But if we wait, the light shines. Oh, look, there it is. Now, at this point, I could assume that, I guess it's just a straight line. Right? I can just keep going. Boom, boom, boom. A little slower, but I can figure out where that next one is, right? Boom. You know what would happen to me after about probably the third or fourth step? I'd fall off. Right? Wait for the light. Now, the children of Israel, they waited a long time for that light to come in the manger, and then when it did, they missed it. They missed it. But we don't have to be in that situation at all. Matter of fact, John chapter 3 and verse 20 says this, oh, golly, this is why we don't like the light. For anyone or everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. Anybody here like to have your dirty laundry put out to the world? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, little guy, you have no idea. Hang in there. But after Jesus was born, an interesting thing happened here. Mary and Joseph eventually take him to the temple to get him circumcised, as was the custom at that time. And on the way there, they met up with a very devout individual. His name was Simeon. And my wife read to you the scripture reading today about Simeon. But what's really interesting in Luke chapter 2, verses 30 through 32, he says, "For my eyes," this is Simeon, "my eyes have seen the salvation which you have prepared before the face of all people." And you know what else he says next? "A light to bring revelation to the Gentiles and glory for your people of Israel." Now, let me ask you, are you happy today that Jesus was a light to bring revelation to the Gentiles? I would hope so. Because, by the way, I think everybody in here is a Gentile. Right? And had it not been for this, the gospel would have stayed with the Jewish people. But Jesus came so that in the beginning it was supposed to be with the Jews, but they gave it up. They abused it. They abused him. And Jesus would go on to reveal to the Jews and the Gentiles the whole truth about humanity's true condition. Because why? He's the light. He's the light. Now let me ask you this. Reflect on this. Don't answer this. Reflect on this. What is the light of Christ showing you today that you need to take that next step of growth in? What is it? Now you say, well, I don't know. Okay. Guess what? He'll tell you. If you'll open your mind and just say, Lord, whatever it is in me, take it away. Show it. David says, create in me a clean heart, O God. Right? Show me the things inside of me. And he will with that light. Jesus, oh, that beautiful light. Look at this. Now, part of this is going to be something that you know, and part of it may be something you don't. So, of course, John 3:16, and we're going to run from 16 through 19. Of course, we know 16. Most of you know 17. For God so loved the world that he did what? Exactly. That whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have what? Obvious. Verse 17, one of my favorites in the Bible. For God did not send his Son to do what? Condemn the world, but that the world through him what? Now let's look at 18 and 19. He who believes in him is not condemned. Amen. But he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son. Makes sense, right? Check out verse 19. And this is the condemnation. Okay, he's condemned. Well, what is the condemnation? That the light has come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. I want to say something right now to the video, to you folks that are here right now. You may have something in your life that you are ashamed of. You may have done something, didn't do something, said something, whatever. You may have hurt somebody. It could be anything. But the one thing I want you to understand today is simply this. The light of Jesus Christ can annihilate all the things that you've ever done. There's nothing too big. You know, we're putting in or we're reinstalling our water filtration system that we have for our well. Do you know what one piece of that is? There's two filters, and then there's one piece. It's an ultraviolet light. Right? You know what that ultraviolet light does? It destroys bacteria. Right? Now, I want you to take that thought process. Okay? And instead of an ultraviolet light right now, I want you to think of the light of Christ. Right? As you allow the light of Christ to be installed in you, if you want to call it that, to be installed in you, you know what it does? It begins getting rid of all of the bacteria of sin. Right? And the more exposure to the light, the more pure the water becomes. Wow, this is almost becoming spiritual. The more you expose yourself to the light of Christ that cleanses all, then guess what? The water of life, Jesus Christ, becomes more pure in you, and what you put out to the world becomes nothing but light and love. You have to first, though, allow that light to shine in and find those recesses of our mind, recesses of our heart that we've tried to keep from everybody because we're ashamed of it. We're scared. Matter of fact, some may even be scared to the point where they don't even think Jesus can accept them. Let me tell you something. Jesus, the King, God incarnate, did not step down from his throne and come to earth so that he could say, oh, wow, that's a little bit too much for me to cover. I don't think I can. Nah, you too bad, Ronnie. Right? He didn't. Matter of fact, that little baby grew up, faced all kinds of harassment and all kinds of things, and then he got beaten for no reason. Well, the reason's because of us, but he got beaten, and then he was on the cross, and at the cross, he still did not say, you know what, if it's going to take all this to take care of those wild people, I'm out. Right? He could have literally, while being on the cross, he could have literally got off there, healed up the wounds, walked away, caught the next Uber to heaven, and it was over. Right? But he didn't. And the mere fact that he didn't should tell anybody out there listening that there is nothing that is so rotten, so bad, so dark, that the light of Jesus Christ can't illuminate, purify, and get rid of. If you will allow that, right? That's why it says in the verse that's on the screen, men loved darkness rather than light. They loved it because they wanted to keep it hidden, because as long as it was hidden, nobody would think poorly of them. If you have somebody come to you and want to share the deepest, darkest parts of their life and have you pray with them, as a Christian, don't you dare judge them. Don't you dare do that. Don't you think poorly of them. Number one, it's not your job. And number two, they need help. Right? And who better to give it to them than a child of God? The people who are supposed to be the light of the world. Now, on the screen here, I know it's a little hard to see, but it's purposeful that way. Can y'all make it out? What is it? Look. Does that make it any easier for you? Y'all all see your faces. Everybody's squinting, looking, scooting up in the chair, turning their head, kind of like my puppy dog. When I talk to the puppy dog, I'll go, whoo. Yeah, this is a snowy, cold trail in the middle of winter, and it's going through a deep, dark old forest. Now, imagine, if you will, hey, ma'am, back there at the controls, would you kill the lights here? Now, this is not total darkness. But now you're traveling along this little snowy pathway here. It's cold. You're not really 100% sure where you are. How many of you guys are feeling real good right now? Anybody? All right, some of you are snow idiots. That's cool. I am too. Don't feel bad. We're in a club together. All right. But you know what would make you feel a whole lot better if in about the third, fourth, or fifth hour of walking? Is if you kind of notice something, or yeah, everybody's going 3 hours walking. What are you doing? I can't even walk an hour. In the snow? Yeah. What if you started catching a glimpse of this? How would you feel? Yeah, it'd make you walk a little faster, right? Everybody's got a little bit of hope. Man, I want to get there because they got a fire going. I can get in there and warm up, get this snow off of me. Whew! Man, and yes, you know what? Even if you are tired to the bone, it still gives you energy because you want to get there, right? Now, let's look at this. What if I told you these pictures have dual meanings? So this is our pathway of life that we have here on this earth. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's scary, but one thing for sure, it's long, right? And some days you don't even want to go on. And you see this thing over here? Now, this is heaven, right? Or you could say this is Jesus, right? And when we know that Jesus is right there with us, that peps our step a little bit more, right? When we know that we have a home that we're headed to, we keep moving, right? Now here's the dual meaning. Check this verse out. Matthew 5, verses 14 through 16. You, church, are the light of the world. A city that's set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. And it gives light to all who are in the house. Now, this is talking about the church, right? And what is giving the light? The church. Why are they giving the light? Because Jesus is inside of them, right? That's what it's supposed to be. Let's keep reading. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify you. Is that what it says? Glorify the Father in heaven. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you today that as this had the first meaning of us moving along to our heavenly home, it's going to be so beautiful when we get there. It's going to be so warm and cuddly and snuggly and all those other good words you can think of right now. This is also the world we live in, the people around us, and they're looking for this. So my question to you as we close today is simply this. You can turn the lights on. My question to you is simply this. Which side of the screen are you on today? Are you giving that light out to somebody who needs it desperately? They're lost on that trail. It's cold. It's dark. Are you the one who is on the trail? Either way, I'm telling you that the light of the world, Jesus Christ, is here to bring you home. He's also here in you to bring others home. So the question is, will you allow him to do it? Will you allow him to do it? And please, please, please remember, if you're in darkness, flip the switch.